People saying, la, 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 la.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm Josh Guesman along with Wendy Thomas, and on today's show we're going to get back into the swing of all things LA Galaxy. We'll talk the signings of Jermaine Alessandrini, the designated player deal that sees Yellow Van Damme get a raise, and we're going to start getting ready for those Galaxy's first preseason game on Tuesday. That's right, LA will host the Xolos of Tijuana on Tuesday at StubHub Center. It's a great show, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Now here are your hosts, Josh Guesman and Wendy Thomas.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm Josh Guesman. She is Wendy Thomas. Glad to have you with us on Thursday night, our live show. Didn't do one last week because my voice disappeared, which is always fun. That makes for a good podcasting whenever it's just silence. So I'm sure there's some avant-garde, like sort of, avant-garde podcasting that's just silence, Wendy. And
in France.
We
should ask Alessandrini about it.
Yeah, we will. Romaine Alessandrini. Somebody's asked if he likes romaine lettuce. You gave it a lot bigger laugh than I did, but you laughing at it makes it, I think, funnier for me. And I'm feeling better about it. So anyway. Okay, so lots of LA Galaxy news. Haven't talked to you in a couple weeks.
Long time.
Yeah, it feels like forever. I'm glad to have you back. So I want to know, as I normally do with you, take your temperature on the LA Galaxy. There's been some good news.
Woo!
A stretch of things has happened now, Wendy, that I believe,
so many things
have sort of put the LA Galaxy back in a better light. Obviously, not everybody's leaving. Coaches have stopped leaving. Coaches have actually arrived. They have a coaching staff. It looks like they have an LA Galaxy 2 coaching staff with Mike Munoz. By the way, Mike is a good friend of the show. Listened to us for a long time whenever it first started. He will be on the show. I guarantee it. I will go to LA Galaxy 2 games. Just like we had Kurt Anolfo on whenever he was LA Galaxy 2. Maybe this is me just hedging my bets just in case Kurt gets adios quickly and then move Mike into the position because I don't know who's coming in next if that all happens. But I'm going to play my cards right and get Mike on the show so he can talk about this it's going to be, I think, a very different looking LA Galaxy 2 team even from what we had last year because, all the LA Galaxy 2 players are going to be playing on the senior team.
Yeah, I'm really interested actually in what is going to constitute LA Galaxy 2 this year because when I was looking at the roster, it appeared like they only had something like 8 players. And so that means that there's a lot of room for people to be promoted from the academy, for people to be signed to home. There's all kinds of room on both rosters, really. There's plenty of space.
I think USL reserves like 5 or 6 roster spots just for the academy. So you can bring up those players without technically like signing them. They're allowed to sort of transfer in those academy positions. So we have that that's coming up. And LA Galaxy 2, I believe, announced their schedule today or yesterday. I don't remember. Everything blurs together. I literally, for the last 3 months, for almost the entire offseason, ever since I got back from my honeymoon, Wendy, I have been on a roof in Long Beach. And that's not like hyperbole. I have literally been on a roof in Long Beach. And if you ever wanted to know anything about my job, I'm turning on refrigeration units and making things really cold. I have a room that's at minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
I've been in an office by the ocean. So
but a better office, right?
It is a nice office.
Okay. See, I have been near the ocean too. It's just in the industrial parts. I mean, really similar things that we do. I can tell.
Yeah, so similar.
The password is lawyer. So yeah. So
LA Galaxy.
Yeah.
LA Galaxy news. There has been so much activity since I was last on the podcast.
Well, you start. You tell me where you want to start. I am ready to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
So I feel do you know the definition of ambivalence? It's where you feel really strongly about something, but in two opposite directions.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
over the past 2 months or so, I think the LA Galaxy has been sort of in it's like a bailiwick. I've been like going back and forth in terms of being on an emotional roller coaster really with this team, because they're doing things that I'm freaked out about. Then they're doing things that terrify me. Then they're doing things that make me angry and sad. And
Right.
then they're doing things that I think actually are really interesting
Right.
and potentially have a lot of, a lot of upside.
Uh-huh.
And so prior to about 2 weeks ago, I was extremely angry.
Right.
I was somewhat upset, particularly with the AJ sale.
Yeah, we haven't even talked to you since AJ departed. So, I mean, yeah.
So I was actually on a podcast where I briefly talked about this. I was on the Total Soccer Show, and I talked about the AJ trade a bit. So I did have a little bit of a catharsis with respect to that on that show. However, I would say that I was opposed to the AJ trade, obviously. I think that the trade of AJ reflects that the front office discounts the emotional attachment that fans have to AJ DeLaGarza, and in a way,
I'm going to ask you a question. I want to stop you there, and I'm going to let you continue. But do you think that they should worry about emotional attachment, or is it about, or if they think this is the best move for the club, is that more important than your emotional attachment?
So I think that the three people who are currently in charge of the front office are all former professional athletes. And if you asked them, their response would probably be that regardless of whether fans care about a player or how long he's been with the team,
right,
or any of those things, they believe probably they should just put blinders on,
okay,
and disregard all externalities with respect to whether a player should be traded or not. I disagree. And I think the LA Galaxy has a wonderful record in terms of its soccer performance. I think that operationally, it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of ways that they could improve their relationships with fans. And I think one way in which you can cultivate fans is by, demonstrating that you appreciate their concerns and the things that they value. It's true that fans really care about outcomes and winning games, probably more than anything else, as much as maybe even your experience on game day. But it's also true that fans develop an emotional attachment to a club and also to players. We had an emotional attachment to Landon Donovan. And everyone has players in the team that they identify with, who they care about. And a lot of that is based on the player's investment in the team and how the kind of loyalty that the player demonstrates to the team. And for players like AJ DeLaGarza, like Juninho, like Landon, it's very easy to develop an emotional attachment to them. And so I disagree with the perspective that all decisions ultimately begin and end with soccer. But from their perspective and their experience, the experience that they bring to bear to the front office, I understand that is likely how they view it.
Right.
It's just, I wonder if the LA Galaxy could do a better job of relating to its fans if it took into consideration some of the externalities of their decision making.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and I get it. Listen, I said it. AJ was on the show, and we got to have a very candid talk. I think I got hit over the head on a couple things because people said that I wasn't upset enough whenever I did the podcast. Maybe I didn't mirror that, but whenever I do a podcast, I am rarely. What's the word? Like sad or upset, Wendy? I think you.
Yeah, you're high energy.
I am high energy, and even having AJ on in that, in thing, I wanted to really try to stay as far out of it as I could because I wanted him to talk. I wanted the fans to listen. That's why we did it live. That's why people were able to call in. That's what I wanted. That's the connection that I wanted from him. But I said it on the show that it's difficult to keep somebody like AJ DeLaGarza at arm's length when I think, quite honestly, him and his entire family are fully open to being hugged. You know what I mean? Like and that was just who AJ was. And I think that's a unique perspective. I think that's very unique. Although I go back to Sean Franklin being traded, and I think there was emotional attachment there for a lot of fans. I go back to Mike McGee whenever he was traded for Robbie Rogers. That's
another one.
Yeah, Mike McGee whenever he was traded for Robbie Rogers. Now we all remember that going down, and then Mike McGee wins MVP. So I remember that. But I mean, even in Bruce Arena's days, there was the exit of fan
I
favorites.
know,
Yeah.
I know.
And
And maybe I'm just an emotional fan, but I hope the front office appreciates that all fans are emotional.
oh yeah.
And disregarding emotion in sport is not a recipe for success, I think. I think you have to take into account emotions and the fact that, sport is a diversion, but it's one in which we invest, so much of our hearts that, disregarding things like that is, I think it's fruitless, but it's up, and that's just one aspect because after the AJ trade,
Mhm. Can I
then,
wait? Hold on. I want to bring one more thing about the AJ trade. As
Okay, go
upset
ahead.
as you are about the AJ trade,
yes.
I think AJ's more upset. And I think
Mm.
that goes for all the fans. As upset as you are, and he didn't say this and he didn't come across, although I think in our interview where we talked to him, you could hear the disappointment in the way he was talking. And he also went over on the LA Riot, I always get it wrong, the Riot Squad cast
Uh-huh.
with Chris Tucker. He talked with Chris. And again, I think you could hear it. He didn't come out and say it, but I think you could hear the disappointment in him. I don't know if the LA Galaxy did that trade right. I
I
don't
don't
know.
think they did.
I don't, and listen, I don't have anything behind the scenes that I know of that where I'm saying that, I know some, this is not that, this is speculation, but I'm not sure that went down the way it probably should have come down.
Meaning like they surprised AJ with it and he didn't see it coming.
I almost, just by the way that he talks about it, I would
Yeah.
almost say that feels like that way to me. And maybe I'm wrong. And, I talked to Chris Klein about it. I get why they traded AJ. I mean, if you look at especially defenders, right? Defenders, they keep getting more and more expensive.
I think it was a bad decision, actually. I really do. I think it was a bad decision. AJ, we're going to need defensive cover now that I'm looking at our roster.
Right.
And we should have kept him. But that's my opinion.
Well, and maybe it was a matter of, and this happened again with Sean Franklin. It happened with, other defenders. Is defenders eventually, even Omar Gonzalez. I mean, if there wasn't a designated player rule, you realize Omar Gonzalez, and they didn't DP Omar Gonzalez at that time, you realize Omar's gone much sooner than whenever he left.
Yeah.
Because they weren't going to be able to afford to keep him.
Yeah.
And that's sort of with AJ. And listen, I go back to this. This is what really hurts me. You remember, I wrote an article last year defending AJ DeLaGarza as being the best defender on the LA Galaxy and that the Galaxy play better when he was there.
Always. They always play better when he was on the field.
I blame Bruce Arena for this. Bruce Arena put it into somebody's mind that AJ DeLaGarza wasn't a starter on that LA Galaxy team for whatever reason. All right? And that somebody actually ran with that and made that decision. I think looking back, and you look at the roster, Wendy, I am in agreement with you that getting rid of AJ DeLaGarza, with AJ on your team, whether you were going to start him or sit him on the bench, the team was deep at defender, just because AJ can play any position, so it doesn't matter.
He could have been right back, could have been center back, could have played a whole bunch of different roles. And now, when I look at it, honestly, I think we could. If anyone gets injured in the back line, okay?
Yes.
Think of how shallow it is.
It's Dave. Okay, so I honestly believe this. I believe this is how it is going to go. Dave Romney is cover for every single spot in the back to start with. Dave Romney is the first guy. Now, whether or not you love Dave, that's up to you. I've said from the very beginning, I think I said it with Kevin, I've said it over the past couple podcasts, even probably with you, Wendy, this team, I like the starting lineup.
Yeah.
Outside the starting lineup, I don't know who's going to play. There's lots of, I'm going to trust these guys because I have no choice. And I don't know what you're going to get. You're going to go from a starting lineup of, let's say, an Alessandrini to an Emmanuel Boateng, which, hey, if you liked Ima and how he played last year, that's great. And I think he did get better over the year. But are you going to trust him?
Basically, because I looked, we have 23 roster spots filled. That's barely, in MLS, that's minimum. You need 23 because there's 18 for every game.
There's 18,
and
yep.
3 people on your team are goalkeepers. That means that the LA Galaxy is essentially going to be putting in its, starting 18. It's going to be putting basically everyone on its senior roster.
Yeah, and there still is probably time. I think that they're going to eventually get up to their 28. That sort of, although, again, it was 28 and they added 2 more homegrown spots to make it 30. So there's 2 spots that are specifically reserved for homegrown players at the end of the roster. Who knows if those spots are technically already filled inside of the 23 that are there right now. I expect more signings, nothing that's going to blow your socks off. There's going to be some LA Galaxy 2 guys that probably get promoted to senior team and then get loaned back down to LA Galaxy 2. It's going to be a small group. I don't think it's going to be a giant roster that's filled with 30. Bruce Arena had the max. Always had the max. But he was also able to get veterans to come in and play for relatively cheap. and I'm not sure that the LA Galaxy currently has the cachet to be able to pull that off. And
Right.
so that's a different story altogether. But anyway, okay, so there's AJ. We're thin behind the starting lineup. We know that, but there is
Very
good
thin.
news. And so where do you want to go with some of the good news?
So after the period of depression that I went through with AJ,
Right.
I started thinking about, how last year a lot of fans would complain about Bruce. They complained about like 3 different things, essentially playing Bruce ball, which is pragmatic soccer, which is not appealing to the eye. 2, refusing to play homegrown players, even though we
Right.
have an academy that is ostensibly rich with talent. And 3, relying on aging 35-year-old European players who are perceived, wrongly or not, as coming to the LA Galaxy to collect a final paycheck.
Right.
And if the LA Galaxy is going to depart from those trends, then this is the moment to do so. And based on the decisions made in the offseason so far, it does seem like there is a departure being made with respect to at least 2, possibly 3 of those Bruceisms, Bruce tendencies of the past. Because instead of going after the Wayne Rooney, the Ibrahimovic,
Right.
we've instead decided to dig into leagues like the Portuguese First Division,
Right.
like Ligue 1,
Mhm.
looking around in the Eredivisie to try and find some gems. And for my money, that's probably
If you're
a
going to,
better move.
yeah, I was going to
It's
say,
a
if
better move.
you were against going and trying to mine Europe because you said, if you go to Europe, it's
England
overvalued.
in particular.
Then that's
Specifically,
okay.
I said England because
Good.
England is the worst place to get value for money. It's absolutely the worst because the wages in England are so inflated relative to the talent that you're going to get. Now, there is a reason why some teams might go to South America, whereas the LA Galaxy might go to Europe.
Uh-huh.
That is, namely that I think the appeal for South American players of going to places like Salt Lake, like Kansas City, is that for them and their families, they might think, I can go to a place that is safe, where I can raise my family, where I can have a better life, etc.
Right.
I think that Los Angeles has a cachet, and believe me, if that Miami Beckham United thing ever happens, this is going to be true for Miami, that there are people who live in countries that are developed nations that have stable democracies, they would still like to come live in Los Angeles, because Los Angeles is perceived as a global cosmopolitan city where you can have a fabulous standard of living with incredible attractions in the arts, restaurants, outdoor activities. I mean, it has a lot of appeal to it,
Right.
beyond the fact that it's just a nice, safe place to raise your family. And so from that perspective, I don't think it's a total waste going to Europe. If you are going to go to Europe, I would steer clear of England. And I like the idea of digging into some of these other leagues and looking for players who are younger and maybe more excited about coming to play in MLS with the LA Galaxy. I don't know if that is the case in terms of Alessandrini,
Right.
but I think that with respect to like Pedro, who we signed, he seems like so happy to come over, super happy to be here. And there's tons of talent to be found in those mid-table leagues, which would still be very beneficial to an MLS team, because MLS is the caliber of soccer is pretty low relative to European leagues, most of the even mid-table European leagues, such that we can draw a lot of talent from them, and they will still elevate the quality of soccer on the field, even if they're not playing in the Premier League.
Yeah, and I get that. Listen, I think, obviously you have João Pedro, who comes from Portugal, and seems like, listen, if you're going to, and you're going to find people, listen, it always happens, and I said it before, you're going to outlive your favorite player's influence on your team, right? So, even AJ DeLaGarza eventually is going to stop playing. And it's kind of strange because I remember when he joined the team, he's one of those guys that like I can chart the podcast with, because 2009, 2009 podcast, like it all sort of goes right hand in hand with everything that happened. So I realized that eventually he's going to go away regardless. He's going to retire. I mean, it's been a while now. You look at it, almost 9 years in the league in 2018, 8 years in the league, 9 years, 10 years. Guys don't live forever or don't play forever. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to kill off AJ just with he's alive. Everybody relax. All right. He's alive. I apologize. My bad. But no, you look at all those things and so you're going to have that. But you look at who you always get like the refresh. And that's what I've been around long enough. I've been covering the team long enough to know that whenever somebody leaves, and David Beckham left. All right. There was a void in that locker room when David Beckham left. There was obviously a certain star power that went away. Robbie Keane leaves. Landon Donovan leaves. Landon Donovan leaves for the first time. Landon Donovan leaves for the second time. There are holes in that locker room that I know where people's lockers are. And I know it sounds weird, but you walk into the locker room and you know where their lockers are. You know where they're going to be. You walk in there, and all of a sudden, the locker that's at the end that is Landon Donovan's, it's always Landon Donovan's locker. Of course, that's where Landon's going to be, is not Landon Donovan anymore. And it could be an LA Galaxy 2 guy right now. I mean, realistically, there's a lot of young players. So
the march of time. It's the march of time, Josh.
It is. But you get guys like Joao Pedro who seem to love life, and he's 23.
Like Van Damme.
Yeah. Jelle Van Damme is like the ultimate sort of goofball guy in the locker room, and he's a leader on this team, and he was last year. He's going to be wearing the captain's armband. That's my opinion. We'll see if that turns into fact. I think it does. Between him and Jermaine Jones, and regardless of what you think of Jermaine Jones, I think those two are probably going to be your captains right now, and it makes sense. They're kind of the most experienced players on the field whenever you look at it. It's not going to be Dan Kennedy, who would certainly be the most experienced, but is our third-string goalkeeper. It's all these things that you look at that the turnover can be just exciting. And you look at Joao Pedro, who looks to be like a guy who you can get behind already. He's got some crazy hair. He likes the theory of the Big Bang, all right? I mean, who doesn't love Big Bang Theory? Well, I mean, I'm sure there's some people. There's people already getting ready to send me, I hate that show, it's not funny, whatever. Joao Pedro thinks it's funny, and it taught him English, and that eventually led him to Los Angeles. So you should love the Big Bang Theory now. So you look at that, and then you get Romain Alessandrini. This is a different guy because here's a guy who realistically is on the outs with his club. He's not getting playing time. The fans don't like him. Please, I got Marseille.
I know.
I got Marseille fans being like, "We're glad you got him. He's all yours."
Lordy, those Marseille fans are brutal.
Yeah, I know. I look at Galaxy fans, and I thought that, there's some pretty brutal takes on a lot of things from LA Galaxy fans. And then I saw the Marseille fans tweeting at me whenever I said that Alessandrini signed, and they're like, I was like, you talk to your mother like that?
Honestly, you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, though. Because I saw the Marseille fans, too, and some of them are just, I think, Ligue 1 fans.
Right.
Where, I mean, they just say the most abhorrent, vile things. I mean, wishing ill upon a player. And as much as, I want the Galaxy to win, but I would never in my life wish ill upon AJ DeLaGarza or Alan Gordon or Mike McGee after they leave the Galaxy. I think that there's something broken in your soul if when a player leaves, you're sitting there wishing them sickness and death. I mean, there's just, and so I just am like, what? When I see people tweet things like that, I just think to myself, what happened in your life such that you were broken? Because there's no reason to wish ill upon any human being, any player after they leave your club. You should only ever say, good luck. I wish you the best. I mean, if Landon Donovan had gone to play for Real Salt Lake, I doubt he will, but if he did, honestly, I would never want him to score in the Galaxy, and it would break my heart. But I could not wish him ill.
Well, I mean, okay, so put it more in perspective of a player who, you might have been a little more happy to see go with Leonardo going to Houston.
Wish him luck. Good luck. I hope you do well. I hope you start in Houston.
Yeah, so we can score. So that way we can score goals. I know. No.
No, but so Alessandrini, it is interesting when you watch the YouTube highlights, right? He looks amazing. He's a free kick specialist.
Yes.
He has an incredible ability to deliver assists. Because he plays in the wing. He looks to have a lot of ability.
Right.
That being said, the fans of Marseille absolutely seem to hate him.
Yes.
So I don't know what to make of him joining the Galaxy, other than the fact that if he did play for Marseille. He did get goals and assists for Marseille, which is a very good club in France. It's not like a lower rung team in France. It's a really good club in France. And Ligue 1 has a lot of talent. I mean, the French academy system is excellent.
Okay.
And so if he is, a good player in terms of he obviously did produce in France when you look at his numbers. He has the ability to be a fantastic player here as long as he stays healthy and puts forth a good effort.
Yeah, and the health thing obviously is something that lots of people brought up. There is some history of knee injury there, but I mean, this is a guy who's looking to rebuild sort of his brand. I love that. I love sort of the resurrection. I think he has plenty of skill and plenty of pace to play in Major League Soccer. I think he fits in very well age-wise in terms of the rest of the club.
Yes.
I mean, he's 27. He's going to be one of the older guys on the team. Quite honestly, at 27, you have. Let's see. Somebody was trying to do the whole math. Who's over 30 anymore?
There's Ashley Cole,
Yep.
Jelle Van Damme,
Yep.
and Jermaine Jones.
And Dan Kennedy.
Okay, well, Dan Kennedy.
Yeah, and a third string goalkeeper. And no, I don't care how many times you guys tweet at me, at Galaxy Podcast, of course. I don't care how many times you tweet at me, they should get rid of Dan Kennedy. There are contracts involved that keep Dan Kennedy on the team, and there's no team called Chivas USA that the LA Galaxy can just offload people on anymore. All right, that doesn't have. That's the time of those days is over. We're not able to offload. Okay, so stop asking. Dan Kennedy's on this team. He will be the dressed second keeper on the LA Galaxy bench because he will be the third string keeper, and they want to keep Diop probably down at LA Galaxy 2 getting minutes. But if Rowe gets hurt, I expect Diop to come up and take the place of the starter, and Dan Kennedy to again sit on the bench in the 18. So Dan Kennedy will get minutes if somebody gets injured in a game, and then that will probably be it. But at $180,000 or $200,000, it's a tough contract to swallow. Thanks, Bruce Arena. You could have taken that one with you whenever you moved down the hall approximately 100 feet.
But you're correct that we went from being one of the oldest teams in MLS last year to being one of the youngest teams this year.
And for anybody who was calling about it, who was saying, we need to get younger, this
We're
is it.
younger.
You're younger.
We are younger.
And you don't have the experience, and I'll tell you right now that you're thin. You're thin because you're younger. Because there's guys who I cannot trust on this team. You can't put your trust in guys like a Bradford Jamison IV, who I love. If he can stay healthy, could be a serious impact player for the LA Galaxy this year because he's going to get minutes, he's going to get chances.
I'm terrified though. He's had 3 concussions.
And it may even be more than that.
I'm just terrified of a player who's had that many concussion injuries.
It is. They're very careful with him. I will tell you that. I mean, he comes out of games. I've seen it at LA Galaxy 2 games. It's again. I agree with you that there's concern there, and it's getting to the point where perhaps the next one is it. I mean, it just keeps happening, and it happens too often.
You cannot allow a 19-year-old kid to suffer head trauma like that. I mean, that's just not feasible.
But even outside that issue, you're going to have to put faith in him that he's going to score goals. Tell me who's going to score goals on this team right now. Who's guaranteed?
Gyasi Zardes and Giovanni Dos Santos. If, by the way, Gyasi Zardes' foot is fully healed because he did not play in the Serbia game. And from my perspective, it looked like he was pulled because he was injured.
He was.
What is going on there?
It was a knee contusion. So it's not. It was basically, hey, you got knocked on the knee. You probably don't need to play in this game. We already know what we're going to get. We'll call you up when you're healthy because you're a starter.
Has he been training?
Yeah.
Has he been training with the Galaxy?
He trained with the U.S. men's national team. He did all the training. So it was really just a matter of, hey, we don't want to play you in this game. You have a knee contusion. I don't know if he's been training with the LA Galaxy. I haven't seen reports, and I haven't been to training because, again, I've been on a roof in Long Beach.
In Long Beach.
Yes.
Okay.
The password is roof in Long Beach. I watched some password. That's why.
Speaking of the Serbia game, I did draw some lessons from that game.
Ooh, please tell.
So the first lesson that I took from that game is that Sebastian Lletget is a pretty good proxy for Jermaine Jones.
Yes.
Because Jermaine Jones was pulled at the half, Lletget came in, and you got to see. Actually, it was a wonderful little thought experiment. You got to see all the things that Sebastian Lletget can do to mimic Jones, but you also got to see all the ways in which each player is better and or worse than the other.
Okay.
They both are, Sebastian Lletget and Jermaine Jones, both as central midfielders are very tough, gritty.
Okay.
They have a lot of tenacity in terms of being, refusing to be dispossessed of the ball.
Okay.
I don't think that Sebastian Lletget plunges forward the way, how Jermaine Jones just bombs forward.
Yes.
Just loves to just run forward to create things and make things happen and be a terror. That does not seem to be Sebastian Lletget's game. And, Jermaine Jones, in his day at least, was a phenomenal athlete. I mean, he was just incredible the way he just ran the field and opened up space. I don't know if he's going to do that this year. Maybe he will. He certainly seemed to want to do it during the Serbia game. But what I would say is that also what you get is Sebastian Lletget, which you don't necessarily get with Jermaine Jones, is a sense of positional awareness with respect to what formation the team is in,
Yes.
and whether it's even a good idea
To go forward.
bombing
Yeah.
forward. I think that Sebastian Lletget is better on the ball than Jermaine Jones.
Can be.
But
yeah.
He can. He's very good on the ball.
Well,
Sebastian Lletget.
here's the thing, and I was fortunate enough to be there for the game, so I was excited about that. Did you get to go down for it? Did you?
No. I was
Okay,
actually at the NHL All-Star game.
Oh well, it's you had more fun than I did. No, like not even a hard sell there. But I got a very unique situation. Is that most of the time when I watch a game, Wendy, I have to watch the whole game. I have to watch all the players. I have to see how the play is flowing through all players. And if I'm trying to keep an eye on a particular person, you only get to see that person realistically when the ball goes to them or when they're moving enough to catch your eye whenever you're supposed to be watching them. I didn't have to do that in this game. And Bruce Arena was kind enough to make sure that I didn't have to do it for either half because Jermaine Jones played 45 and then Lletget played the 45. So I got to stare at Jermaine Jones for 45 minutes while I was writing my article. So you figure it's at least a good 10, 12 minutes of me actually watching the game. So I was watching him, and I was impressed with his decision-making in terms of, and you talked about bombing forward, I was impressed with his patience. And as a 35-year-old, he needs to have patience. He can't run all the time in every direction, which is a Jermaine Jones, screw the formation, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go over there.
I'm going.
Yeah. I saw him have some holdbacks, some seeing the field, some taking his time. I thought that technically he was a little sloppy at times. And I think that goes with the entire U.S. men's national team, who really didn't have a terrific day, and it was a pretty boring game. And it was my second 0-0 game at Qualcomm for Camp Cupcake. So I'm really doing great on all these caps. I'm lining up with like 0-0 games, and I guess I should stop going to Camp Cupcake games is the real answer there. So anyway, but doing that. So I like Jones. I thought he had one shot, and the shot on goal came from a quick shot that I didn't think he had enough space to get to, and it was with his left foot, and it was undercover, and it impressed me because it was much faster than I thought he was going to be able to get it off. It was one of those where he's a guy who has the ability, and I talked to some other people who have watched him a lot more than I have, and they say he's a guy that has the ability to take the quick shot and to sort of catch everybody off guard. And when you think he's covered and in traffic, that's when he's probably the most dangerous with his shooting. And so he just missed, and that was really the story of the entire U.S. team was just missing. So
he's a monster of a player. I mean, when he's healthy, he's a difference maker. There's no doubt about it. My concern, and I've expressed this I don't know how many times, is I literally feel like Jermaine Jones, either this year, he's going to get injured and be out for 5 months, and we will have wasted $500,000, or he's going to be pivotal to the midfield and an absolute, difference maker in terms of, making our team cohesive and scoring goals. It's like a total coin toss. I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be either like we've wasted $500,000 or he's going to be great.
Do you have a dog sleeping on your lap? Like, maybe? Maybe is somebody growling in the background? It's not me.
No.
I don't want people to think it's me growling. I hear growling.
There's no one growling.
I hear growling. Wendy, are you hungry?
No,
Is it maybe I'm hungry? I don't know. There's like a ghost or something. There's a gremlin clearly, and you're not supposed to feed it after a certain time. I know these things.
Gone. I put her down.
Okay. I'm hearing something, and I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, that's not me. Like, I'm muting things in the studio to make sure it's not me. I'm like, no, I don't have the studio puppy with me because she would snore, and that could definitely happen. So I am pretty good. I
moved her. She's not, you can't hear her now.
I've told you this before, that I have this sixth sense of being able to tell what's going on in the room just by listening to, like, acoustics and things. Like, I told you what your room kind of looked like without ever having been in your room.
That's true. The first time I ever potted with Josh, he's like, okay, because you have hardwood floors. I was like, what? How do you know I have hardwood floors?
Yeah, and I was like, there's probably not a lot hanging on the walls, and you probably have a computer.
I don't have anything hanging on the wall.
Yeah, and there's probably a computer monitor in front of you, and I'm hearing the sound bounce off the wall. Yes, okay, so that's what I do. Anyway, back to the gremlin, back to the...
You're like Spider-Man.
Yes, yes, exactly like Spider-Man. That's what I am. The password is Spider-Man. So anyway,
Yes,
yeah,
well,
go
that's
ahead.
great. I think Jermaine Jones could be a difference maker for the Galaxy, or he could get injured and be on the bench.
And that's the gamble here. And even
Yeah.
I've been pretty straightforward with it's a gamble. It's a gamble to pay him as much money as I think that they're paying him. They had to use targeted allocation money, so it's over $481,000. We round that up in like little dollar increments, so it makes it easier. But it's over $481,000. Could it be in the 550? And would that make sense? I think the lower the number is, the better the more sense it makes. I think somebody reported it around that 550 mark.
Jeff Carlisle did.
Yeah, I think Jeff, great Jeff. I got to see Jeff. I really like him. But yeah, so yeah, that's the gamble with drones. Then you get to Sebastian Lletget.
Sebastian Lletget. Now, I love Sebastian Lletget. I thought he really made a case for himself during the Serbia game. I thought, because this is his first cap, and I had a feeling. I was talking to my boyfriend about it. I said, I really have a feeling he is going to take the bull by the horns if he gets some minutes. And I really think that he did. And one thing that I found sort of gratifying was that he came on, and as a central midfielder, you could really see his potential, which actually in a way makes me sad, because with assigning Alessandrini and Pedro and Jones, I realize now that Lletget is going to be put on the wing, which is unfortunate, because I think his best position is central midfield, and I want to see him develop in central midfield instead of being shuttled out to the wing, which I don't think is his natural best position.
Whenever he plays in the middle, his best asset is, one, his ability to find people in dangerous positions. So I love his playmaking and distribution. That's great. Sasha Kleshman remarked that after the game that he lost the ball a couple of times in some dangerous positions. He's new to this thing. He's trying it out. I'm going to give him a pass. But that is still something you keep an eye on. You don't want him to lose the ball whenever he's in the middle. The risk for him in the middle is a lot bigger than it is on the wing. And whenever he's on the wing and he gets to try things, he gets to be more technical, he gets to cut inside, I'm more at ease because he doesn't have as much responsibility. But that doesn't mean that that's his best position for me. I will tell you this. One of the most dangerous places that he looked for the U.S. men's national team is whenever he was able to get outside on the wing in a late run and put crosses into the box that simply weren't there in the beginning of the game. Jermaine Jones did the same thing. So again, they're very similar. I do think he's going to play on the wing, but with the absences of Jermaine Jones probably for the U.S. men's national team, with the likelihood now that even Sebastian Lletget is probably going to get some call-ups again, and we'll see whether or not he makes it into, but he certainly didn't hurt his case. The Galaxy should be happy that he is playing so well. Kevin Baxter's theorizing that Sebastian Lletget's going to have a great year regardless of what position he's at, because the confidence that has come from his U.S. men's national team call-up and somebody finally realizing that he doesn't suck. You have to remember, this is a kid who languished over in the EPL, and now Bruce Arena finds him, and not only does Bruce Arena find him, Bruce Arena brings him to the U.S. men's national team. He trusts him, and I think the LA Galaxy are going to get to trust him, and this could be a great year. I don't think it matters right now where he plays. We'll have to see how that plays out. I'm not going to disagree with you. I think the center could be his spot, Wendy. But I think right now he's on the wing, and I don't hate that, having Sebastian Lletget on the right wing with, Romain Alessandrini on the left wing.
By the way,
yes.
When the U.S. men's national team is playing, our team is literally not going to be able to field a complete 18 players. It's because during the Honduras call-ups, when it's the Gold Cup or World Cup qualifying, if Giovanni Dos Santos goes to Mexico, Zardes goes to U.S. men's national team, Lletget and Jones go to the U.S. men's national team, we literally are not going to have 18 players.
Don't forget about Brian Rowe, who is U.S. men's. I'm just kidding.
Brian Rowe's probably not going to get called
I
up.
don't think he was proximity call up, and I'm okay with that.
Yes.
I'll live with that.
I mean, think about that. We are not going to be able to field a complement of 18 players when there's actual national team games going on.
I don't believe that's ever going to happen. I don't believe you're ever not going to have 18 players. I agree with you. I know what you're saying in terms of numbers, but again, I expect that roster to have more people on it, and that there's no issue with them not being able to field it. Currently, as a thought exercise, yes, you're correct. But that's not going to happen. They're going to have 18 players.
Can't wait to see Emma Boateng as our starting central midfielder, paired with Baggio.
He could be with Joao. Joao's going to be there. He's not going to any national, unless he plays so well. They're going to call him up to the Portugal national team. That could happen as well.
Dear.
Probably not going to happen. The LA Galaxy getting.
What do you think? What do you think of the Alessandrini signing? I haven't asked you.
I like it. I have liked it. I liked it since Jeff Carlisle first even put his name on the radar. Everybody always asks me, who's going to come in for the LA Galaxy? Raise your hand if you called Romain Alessandrini after all those people left, and you're all liars because you have no idea. Joao Pedro, you had no idea the LA Galaxy had these guys on their list. All right, Jermaine Jones was an obvious one, and nobody wanted him. Everybody was complaining. But Alessandrini, once you learn about who he is, I like the play. I'm certainly not going to say he's a guaranteed. I mean, he is a guy who could flop. He could absolutely flop. I mean, you talk about getting injured. He's a guy who the LA Galaxy,
I know.
they are going to rely on him to bring speed and technical ability to the outside and being able to cut in and be able to finish with both feet. Set pieces, if he can wrangle those from Gio, even the Gio never scores them. So all of these things are going to happen that you're going to rely on these guys. And that's where I get to the thinness of this roster is that who do you rely on after Alessandrini? It's Emmanuel Boateng, and there's lots of people who love him. I like Emma as a player, but he is not a player who I can depend on. I asked you who's going to score all the goals, and you say Gyasi Zardes. Well, that would be something new because realistically, Gyasi Zardes didn't score a lot of goals last year. And granted, it's positioning, and I'm not going to argue that. Of course not. But can you rely on him to finish? Remember, this is a kid who used to send him onto Victoria Street his first year. I mean, the guy couldn't hit Rosie; it would be out of the stadium. So it's not unrealistic to think that he could struggle to score goals. And if he struggles, you have to rely on Giovanni Dos Santos, who had, 15 goals and 11 assists last year. He needs to have at least that next year. And he's the guy who you're counting on to score goals.
I would like to give the front office credit for something
Hold on.
Since I've done such a job on them in terms of criticizing their decision making in the offseason. I feel like it's incumbent upon me
Hold on.
give credit.
Hold on. Credit alarm to the LA Galaxy front office. Everybody, hang in there. This might get a little rough. Wendy's not used to doing this, so
No, I know it's hard for
all
me.
right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, I a couple months ago was pointing out the nonsense of paying Jermaine Jones $500,000 when he played 9 games last year and tore his ACL and is a year older and is living in Los Angeles where his family is situated.
Right.
However, I also pointed out how we should be scouting in South America because there's better value for dollar. During the offseason, there was a lot of speculation that we were going to bring in a player from NEC in the Eredivisie.
Yeah,
and it appeared the Galaxy had made a couple of bids on him, and that the team was trying to get the LA Galaxy to up their bidding by perhaps holding him hostage or something like that.
Right.
He was a defensive midfielder. And one thing I would say is that I think there would probably be a temptation on the part of European clubs that are unfamiliar with MLS, who, especially for a club in Los Angeles, to speculate that the team is going to spend wild amounts of money purchasing a player the way it is done in, for example, China or something like that. I think that in order to establish that MLS, actually executes a fair amount of discipline in terms of its spending, that it makes sense for the LA Galaxy to not permit itself to be held hostage in negotiations with European clubs.
Right.
And I think that you can do that really, really well. What that's predicated on, is if you have to be able to have a ton of scouts out there, essentially to get a lot of scouting information, because it means that if you have a target in the off season for any given position, you need to have like a dozen different targets for any given position that you want to fill. Because anytime you go to a club and you get the sense that they're going to be unwieldy in their negotiations, you just have to cut it and move on to the next player. Because as I was saying, there's so much talent. I mean, people talk about, we can't get talent in MLS. We actually can get a lot of talent in MLS. It's a very attractive place to live. Los Angeles is a destination location. But it means that in order to execute a strategy of being really smart with your money and dealing with overseas clubs, is that you have to have scouted so thoroughly,
right,
and looked all over these leagues in Belgium, in Denmark, in Italy, in Turkey. You have to look everywhere and identify those little gems and all these other teams that you think could fill this position. And I like the fact that immediately after the LA Galaxy submitted their second bid to NEC, and they said no, that immediately the LA Galaxy shuttled off, signed Joao Pedro the next day, and it was over, because that signals that they're not going to be held hostage to a team that is trying to extract money from them, which doesn't justify it given the player.
Okay, so here's and I agree with you that I like that. Here is the little twist probably on that could or could not invalidate all of your praise towards them on whether or not it went down this way. But perhaps the LA Galaxy threw up the smokescreen of trying to get Gregor Breinberg, who was the guy at NEC, who was the younger version of Nigel de Jong, basically, is what he even looks like him a little bit. So I mean, there was this similarity to it, is that the LA Galaxy could have put up the smokescreen of trying to sign him, so that way the Portuguese club would not hold them hostage over trying to get Pedro. And
But I like that too. It's the same thing. You're essentially having multiple irons in the fire.
Right.
Trying to because you're essentially leveraging one player against another when you're submitting bids for them. And I like the idea of the LA Galaxy having enough wherewithal and enough intelligence, having looked at all these leagues all over Europe and being in the position where they know exactly who they want to target and bring in, and that they're not going to allow themselves to be manipulated in dealing with the market for soccer players.
All right, we got about 13 minutes left. I still want to get to a couple things. I
Okay.
agree with you on that. I want to ask you this, and you have to be quick in your answer because I want to get on to something else. But do you think that the signings of Joao Pedro and the signings of Romain Alessandrini lend the thought that the LA Galaxy are more invested in analytics? Because it seems, at least to me, and I'll make this argument knowing nothing behind the scenes on this, that they have found some people who may have been either rising stars that they may have got before they actually fulfilled that rising star, maybe with Joao Pedro, a guy who is, seems like he's on that upward arc at 23, and you realistically are going to get him in some of his prime years at 24, 25, 26, possibly keep him here. He gets better. Maybe you can even sell him in 2 or 3 years and make a whole bunch of money. I mean, there's possibilities with that signing. I see that. Or even Romain Alessandrini, a guy who's underutilized, who shows possibly a history of injuries, but you're still looking at him and saying, but this guy can give us what we need, and he's not being utilized. Do you think that could possibly lend itself to analytics?
Everything I've ever heard about the LA Galaxy is that they don't give a fig about analytics. And I know that a lot of that is attributable to Bruce, who doesn't give a fig about analytics.
I think, and let me just say this. I think Bruce cares about analytics. He just doesn't care that you care about analytics. All right. In terms of Bruce didn't care whether or not he was using analytics or not. He may use them. He just doesn't care that you want to know about it. That's not him. He doesn't care. So I think there is analytics going on at the LA Galaxy, more so than is led to believe. Just because, again, these two signings for some reason just sort of put that in the back of my head. I'm just kind of coming out in the back, just maybe, possibly.
It would be a departure, I think, because from everything that I've heard, they do not have any kind of robust analytics department or anyone. I mean,
do you need robustness? Or do you just need that one nerd in the cellar who's like, in a closet?
I don't even know if we have a nerd in the cellar.
I think there might be. You know what? There's 2 things that I need to do. One is find out what Jovan Karofsky actually does for the club. He's technical director. Tell me what that means. That's an Alexi Lawless thing.
Isn't he the one who goes around scouting? Isn't he the one who hires scouts and gets scouting information? That's what I assume that he does.
Maybe. Don't know. Gonna have Jovan on the show. This is a goal. Okay. What LA Galaxy?
What do you do for a living?
Brendan
Jovan?
Hannon, Chris Glidden. You're getting an email very soon about me asking for Jovan. I want to talk to Jovan. I want to find out what Jovan does. I want to lay it. Jovan, tell me what you do from the very beginning to the very end of your day. I would like to know a day in the life of Jovan.
Well, right. I know that he was pivotal to bringing Giovanni in.
That is true. And I've also heard that he is largely, or at least a part of, I don't want to give him the full credit because I don't want to take it away from other people if indeed there was other people involved with getting these 2 signings as well, with Alessandrini and Joao Pedro. So if he's the guy doing all this stuff, then you look at
there's a nerd in Jovan's basement.
Okay, very well. I don't know. That sounds a little creepier for some reason.
The nerd is in Jovan's basement.
Jovan Karofsky has a nerd in his basement. You heard it here on Corner of the Galaxy. No need to call the police. We're fine. I'm already getting crap on Twitter, by the way, for people telling me that AJ's not going to live forever. I got quoted as saying AJ's not going to live forever. Don't you love how quotes work? Don't you love it? I can put a bracket around anything and make things
Newsflash, none of us are going to live forever.
That's right. Okay, anyway. So that was just the analytics.
Analytics, I don't know.
LA Galaxy coming up on their first preseason game, Jolos de Tijuana on Tuesday night, 8 p.m. 8 p.m. is better than 7 p.m., people. 8 p.m. is better than 7:30 p.m. Yes, it means a later night on a school night. I get it. Get your hall passes. Maybe take a nap at lunchtime in order to just sort of, fill your way through that. You should feel sorry for me. I probably won't get out of StubHub Center until 1 a.m. All the violins are playing. So StubHub Center, Jolos de Tijuana coming to StubHub Center on Tuesday, first preseason game of the season. If you're a season ticket holder, I think you're getting tickets to that. I heard that you still have to pay for parking, so get your $20 out. Or, eventually, and I don't remember the exact dates, although we have an article up on cornerofthegalaxy.com written by Jose. Jose wrote about the Galaxy Express bus that's coming for mass transit, so I'm excited about that. I will never use it because I will be there again until 1 a.m., but other people will use it, so I want to hear reviews of that whenever that comes out. So that's important. But we also had, and with 8 minutes left, roughly 6 minutes. It takes 2 minutes for the ending, all that stuff. Jelle Van Damme gets the designated player role.
Yay!
I mean, it was expected. LA Galaxy insider Adam Serrano said that it was going to happen.
He extended his contract, correct?
He extended his contract, and it comes with a pay raise, although we don't know how much that pay raise is. We know it's over, and again, the magic number, $481,000. So anything over that is either a designated player or a TAM player, okay? Targeted allocation money. Technically, I think you can even use general allocation money to pay down underneath the max budget, okay? But you can't use them in combination, and there's all sorts of other archaic rules. So I launched an email talk with my good friend, Professor Stephen Bank, over at the UCLA Law School. Steve is like the coolest law professor that you ever met because he loves soccer and he talks about soccer, and he's kind of an expert on CBA stuff, and also whenever things get really in the weeds, he knows about like accounting and all those sorts of things. So yes. Yeah, Wendy, you know all that stuff too. I know. You're smarter than me though, remember? But I talked to Steve because I was like, I'm going to email Steve.
It's not like you don't know a lawyer who also has who's passionate about soccer. Hello.
Steve is really...
All right, you love Steve.
I do love Steve. Anyway, but so Steve and I had this email conversation back and forth because I had a theory. And my theory was, and I said it whenever the LA Galaxy did it, but I sort of did it under the guise of, I think I'm right. And then even Steve has to come back with, yeah, it looks like you're right. Because it's MLS, and who honestly knows what is actually happening with any of this stuff. So anyway... Jelle Van Damme signs with designated player contract. We know that. We knew it was coming. Adam Serrano reported that. So it's not a surprise. So it happens. But why would they sign him to a designated player role whenever they just want to tam him down or buy down his contract using targeted allocation money in the summertime? And it comes down to a very, very simple financial analysis. It's something that's very easy to understand. And it has to do with prorating salaries, prorating max budget of that $481,000, or we'll just say $480,000 for the ease of math, and what the prorating does and what saves money. So let's just say that Jelle Van Damme is getting the max amount of money under a buy down from TAM. Okay, so a designated player can make a max of $1 million if he's going to be bought down eventually with targeted allocation money. Now, it gets tricky because I even wrote this in my article. That max actually is $1.5 million if you do it in the middle of the season, but it would be unlikely that the Galaxy went above the $1 million mark, and I think it's probably below that. But we're just going to say it's $1 million, okay, Wendy? $1 million. That means that in order to get him under the max budget salary of, in this case, $480,000, we took out the one to make it easy on math, you will need $520,000 of TAM money, okay? Let's just say that's the case. So you need $520K in TAM in order to get him down underneath that max budget. Okay, now, that's a 12-month deal. So you need $520 in TAM. Let's do it. Let's prorate it. Let's have him be a designated player where you pay him, and anything above that max $480,000 is paid by the team, but it doesn't count towards the salary cap. We know this. Okay, that's what a designated player is. So realistically, you can pay a designated player $40 million. I don't know that anybody will do that as of yet, but nonetheless, you could do that because you're just responsible for paying all of it above the $480,000. Easy, no problems. That's easy. Now let's go into the prorated example. Prorated at half the year. So instead of 12 months, we have 6 months. All right, basically for the whole year, that's how we're going to do it. So if your salary now is $500,000 because you took $1 million and you divided it by half, right, Wendy? So we have $500,000, and so the max budget then is not $480,000; it's $240,000. Okay, because again, prorate the max budget, prorate the salary. Okay, prorate everything as you go. Then the amount of TAM you need in the middle of the season is $260,000. So you went from needing $520,000 to paying down Van Damme's salary over 12 months underneath the max budget in a targeted allocation money deal, a TAM deal, to needing $260,000 in TAM. You just saved yourself a boatload of TAM by making him a designated player for the first 6 months.
See, isn't accounting fun?
It was fun with numbers. Okay, but that also means that 260 that you saved, because basically you save half the amount, can be used over 12 months and not just 6 months. Because
and you could use it to, buy Jermaine Jones or João Pedro.
There you go. So that is why this is a big deal. That is why Yellow Van Damme is a designated player. He deserves the spotlight that comes with it. I'm not going to say that.
And the captain's armband.
And the captain's armband, absolutely. But but the reason that they designated player him has nothing to do with how much money he's going to make. It's how much money they could save. And that is it. So you want to give him props for making Yellow a DP, you can do that. And again, Yellow deserves it, not taking anything away from it. But the reason they made him a DP is financial reasons. It was a smart way to go. It's the intelligent way to manage your salary cap. And if that's twice in this podcast that we have said the LA Galaxy are intelligent, then you know what? That's twice more than a lot of other podcasts have said.
Hell's bells.
I'll tell you, we're just setting them up and knocking them down. So there you go. That is the LA Galaxy wrapped up in about an hour. We've talked about Alessandrini, who I think is positive. I think João Pedro is positive. We have to reminisce again on AJ, which I think is going to be nagging. I wouldn't be surprised if AJ already has the 2 calendar dates where Houston plays the LA Galaxy circled.
I do not know what I'm going to do when Houston comes to play. I really don't. I'm going to be really a wreck.
I know what you're going to do is whenever he gets announced for Houston, you're going to clap just like everybody else does. You honor the player and a guy who's given so much to Los Angeles.
Well, of course, but it's going to be heartbreaking for me to watch AJ in orange.
I know. I'll be honest, AJ, I love you, but the orange is not flattering on you. Actually, the orange is flattering on no one. The orange is not flattering. Do you know anybody who looks good in orange? I don't look good in orange. Not orange and brown. It doesn't work for me. All right, Wendy. So that's it. That's what we have with the LA Galaxy right now. There's lots of other stuff that's still going to come out. This is preseason. I don't even know if Alessandrini is back with his visa. He was at the Lakers game, so, he couldn't fly back apparently right away and go back to Marseille or back to France in order to pick up his visa to then turn around and come back. And no, it has nothing to do with the Trump travel ban. It is literally just a function of picking up a visa. Whenever you do it, you have to pick up the visa in the country that you are coming from in order to pick that up almost like 9 times out of 10. This is kind of standard stuff. But he came out here to finalize the deal. He did that. They shot a really cool video of him, which I enjoyed.
We have so many handsome players, Josh.
Do you think that somebody said that Alessandrini and Sebastian Lletget are brothers? So basically, they look exactly twins.
Sebastian Lletget is the most handsome man I've ever seen in my entire life.
I know.
So Alessandrini has a lot to live up to.
They have the same beard. They're beard brothers. That's what's going to happen. So anyway, the Frenchman and the boy, which, by the way, we really need to come up with another nickname for Sebastian Lletget than the boy, because I do not like that. If you like it, that's fine, but it's just not working for me anymore because I sound like an idiot trying to say it. All right, because I'm not cool. You guys know this. I'm like the whitest person you know. The whitest person you know cannot say the boy and not sound ridiculous. So if we can come up with something else, I appreciate it. Alessandrini nicknames are up in the air. The Frenchman is the current winner in the house.
Monsieur from Marseille.
That is way too long, and it requires me to almost have a French accent. I just can't say the boy, and now you want me to use my French. My French, whenever I went to Paris for my honeymoon, involved bonjour, bonsoir, merci. That was about it. And then I would hopefully speak English the rest of the time. I tried. My French is not good.
Romaine lettuce.
No. No, lettuce wrap. Bulletproof Baggio.
Exactly. Carrie came up with the Monsieur from Marseille. We'll come up with a good nickname for him. We will.
All right. You can submit those to @Galaxy Podcast on Twitter. Of course, email us. cornerofthegalaxy@gmail.com is where you can always find us as well. Wendy, where can people find you? Because people are trying to find you.
Cornerofthegalaxy.com. American Soccer Now, and on Twitter at BartsBlonde.
All right, and if you're looking for me, at Guesman, JGUESMAN on Twitter, of course. That's not as much fun as at Galaxy Podcast, where we can talk Galaxy all you want. CorneroftheGalaxy.com, all of our articles. Check out Corner of the Galaxy from the Box. LA Times reporter Kevin Baxter has joined us as full-time co-host of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box. I expect a lot of great insight from him over this year. At the fan, thing that's coming up, the fan rally that is happening before the season starts, there's a possibility we'll be there as well. We'll fill you in with details as that becomes available. Let's see, for Miss Wendy Thomas, I'm Josh Guesman. We hope you have a wonderful day, night, or whenever you're listening to us, and you can catch us right back here next Thursday on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. And for all of your independent LA Galaxy news, discussion, and entertainment, including this podcast, head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. Fans, thanks for listening. We ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.